They never found her teeth. That's the first thing I remember about that day. The way the sheriff stood there, hat in hand, pale as bone under the porch light, stammering to my mother that they'd found the rest of her, but not her teeth. Like her smile had somehow stayed behind, or maybe it ran off on its own, grinning into the dark. She was my sister Emma, 16, loud, stubborn, always humming under her breath like she was hiding a tune meant for ghosts. We used to fight over the bathroom mirror, over who got the front seat, over who was better at holding their breath underwater. Stupid stuff, kid stuff, the kind of things you assume you'll get to argue about forever. But then she went missing, not in the dramatic way you see on the news, with helicopters and flyers stapled to trees. No, she just didn't come home one night. She'd gone out to feed the cat, old Barney, a mangy orange tom that belonged more to the woods than us. It was after dinner, after dark. She took the flashlight and the kibble, and she never came back. We called and yelled and searched, thinking she was messing around. Emma was like that, prankster blood. But the yard was empty, the trees didn't answer, and the flashlight was lying in the dirt behind the shed, lens cracked, bulb still faintly glowing, like it had seen something that made it want to die. I remember Mom losing her voice, screaming her name. I remember Dad shaking the batteries out of the flashlight, like that would bring her back. And I remember standing there in the cold grass, suddenly realizing how loud the woods were when you were waiting for something to answer. The search lasted 6 days. They brought dogs, men with rifles, men with maps. But it was on the third night they found what was left. Clothes torn to threads, fingernails stuck in bark, hair clumped in the mud like weeds. And blood. So much blood, it looked like the ground had been trying to bury it out of shame. But no teeth. I don't know why that detail stuck with me. Maybe because it felt symbolic, like whoever, or whatever, took her didn't want her to ever smile again. Or maybe it was because I could still hear her laughter at night, echoing faintly through the floorboards, like it had soaked into the walls of our house and refused to die with her. The house never felt the same after that. It was a modest old farmhouse, creaky floors peeling paint, the smell of mothballs and cinnamon in the pantry. The kind of place that felt like it was always holding its breath. But after Emma vanished, it felt infected, like grief had grown mold and started breathing on its own. I started hearing things. Footsteps upstairs when no one was home. The kitchen faucet turning on in the dead of night. A low, wet sound behind the bathroom wall, like something chewing slowly through the pipes. I told myself it was just trauma, what the school counselor called acute loss hallucinations. But that doesn't explain the smell. God, that smell. It came first like a hint, faint and metallic, like rusted pennies and rain on asphalt. Then stronger, more pungent. Rotting meat, damp soil, something chemical, something old. It seeped through the vents at night, pooling in the corners of my room until I gagged. But no one else seemed to notice. Not my parents, not the cops, not even the cat, who'd taken to sleeping in the barn and wouldn't come near the house after Emma disappeared. And then the dreams began. At first, they were just flashes, trees swaying in moonlight, a girl's hand brushing against bark, eyes in the distance. Then they got sharper, clearer, like I was seeing through someone else's skull. I'd wake up sweating, dirt under my fingernails, leaves in my bed. Once I found a thorn in my foot, buried deep like it had been stepped on in real life. Still, I said nothing, because by then I had started to understand something that scared me more than the dreams themselves. She wasn't gone. Not really. She was still here, somewhere between the walls and the trees and the silence. Watching, waiting, whispering things I couldn't quite hear during the day, but that slid into my ears like worms at night. And worse, I think she was angry, not at whoever took her, not at the world, at me, because I had let her go outside alone, because I hadn't followed, because I just stood there, flashlight in my hand, staring at the edge of the woods like it was an ocean, too deep and too dark to touch. Sometimes I wonder if she even died that night, or if something changed her, rewrote her, replaced her. What came back in the dreams, it had her face, but not her eyes. Her eyes were wrong, too black, too still, like they'd forgotten how to blink. The worst dream happened on the anniversary. I'd gone to bed early. I remember that clearly, because the power had gone out, and I didn't want to sit in the candlelight with my parents pretending we were okay. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, counting heartbeats, listening to the wind scrape against the windows. And then, without warning, I was outside. Not dreaming, not in my bed, just suddenly standing barefoot in the woods, moonlight dripping through the branches like silver oil. The trees were too tall, too narrow. They leaned in on each other like gossiping corpses. And ahead of me, in a small clearing, was Emma. She was crouched over something, her hair matted with moss, her fingers twitching like spiders. She looked up slowly, too slowly, and I felt my bladder go cold, because she had no mouth, just torn skin, torn in a smile. And in her hands, glistening like pearls under the moonlight, were teeth, my teeth.